So as everyone's logging in this morning, I just want to sort of set the breakfast table here for introducing this morning. I'm pretty excited about being here. I'm Audrey Russo. I'm President and CEO of the Pittsburgh Technology Council. But today, this is really, like many things that we're going to continue to do, are really regional. And we're pretty excited about that. Regional now can mean Ohio. And you're going to hear from some folks today who are with us that are going to talk about, you know, lots of opportunities that they are working on, as well as some of the issues that they are struggling with that are very common for all of us. So this is CIO, Chief Information Officer Insights. It's run by Monica Takis, who's on our team, and she runs our programs that have deep content knowledge, and really appreciate her leadership and the work she's doing. I'm just here for your early morning entertainment, and then I'm going to back out. So really appreciate you joining us. And we're hosting a networking portion at the end. We're doing something different. So after the event, Monica thought it was important that once we hear from folks and we have these panel discussions, that it might make better sense for us to network afterwards, not just to do anything, before. Very often when we have breakfast briefings, we'll do that. So we should have lots to chat about and opportunities for connections. So again, we're very pleased to have the second collaboration with the CIOs in Columbus. And, again, thank you to Covail, as I mentioned, who helped us connect with these regional leaders. We look to a strong partnership with Covail. And they are new to Pittsburgh, by the way. They enable enterprises to build intelligent operations to reduce risks and total cost of ownership through AI, automation, and cybersecurity solutions. And we're really thrilled to have their partnership. So we have a chat session, and the chat session will allow you to, ask questions. We want this to be interactive. And we obviously want enough opportunity for our guests to speak, but I want to just thank the series sponsors. Just in case you don't know them, you need to know them. A longtime partner with us and friend is CGI. They were actually founded in 1976. They are one of the world's largest IT and business consulting firms with 400 people in Pittsburgh, based in Pittsburgh. And they actually have a footprint in Columbus, Ohio. And I believe it's about 100 to 200 people scattered around that region as well. So they've been pretty excited about our reach. And they've been in our region for 30 years, and they have developed a lot of innovative solutions side by side. They acquired a local, technology company as well, deeply involved in their innovation practice. So thank you, CGI. And then there's also Comcast Business, the business side of that organization. We're very close to, both as it comes to their relationships with the local businesses, but you might be surprised that they really do power the Pittsburgh's top businesses in our community. And they're very, very active. They also have been very, very active during the period of time of the digital divide that really blew up in all of our faces that we saw, and have worked to make sure that, even households have access to Wi-Fi as kids no longer were in school, and particularly as we look at the next 9 weeks where kids are not going to be in school as well. So they focus on network connectivity, managed services, and they really are focused on the business customers. So we have a supporting sponsor, Avenade. We're really thrilled about them. They're a global professional services company with IT consulting services in Pittsburgh, and they are considered the #1 Microsoft partner worldwide. They focus on the platform of Microsoft and specialize in AI, business analytics, cloud, app services, digital transformation, what's the modern workplace, security services, technology, and managed service offerings. So I am going to be quiet now. You won't have to see me until the end. And I want to introduce Ben Blanquera. I talked about him a moment ago with Covail. He's VP of Covail, and he's just going to kick off the session. I'm going to be quiet, get a cup of coffee. And I encourage everyone to, enjoy this morning's session as well as the networking afterwards. So thanks, everyone. Passing the baton to Ben. Looking for you there, and I will put myself on mute. So Ben.
All right. Well, thanks, Audrey, for that wonderful introduction, and thank you to our audience and to our sponsors for all being here. And a big thank you in advance for our panelists. We're going to share a little bit about some insights, and really our focus today is not going to be just on surviving. It's going to be about what are we learning and what are the opportunities that are in front of us that we're starting to take advantage of. So it's not just surviving, it's now thriving. How do we really make the most of it? So that's going to be really the focus of today's session. Once again, my name is Ben Blanquera. I'm with Covail, and we're in the business of helping enterprises be more successful through collaboration and innovation. We love coming to Pittsburgh. We've spent the last 5 years really honing our craft in Columbus area. We've been founded by 7 of the largest Fortune 1000 companies. And so we are born of enterprise solving big enterprise problems. So with that, what I want to do is take an opportunity for each of our panelists to do a little bit introduction. Katherine, would you introduce yourself, please?
Sure, thank you, Ben. I'm Katherine Karolick, and I am the Senior Vice President, Information Technology at Allegheny County Airport Authority. We operate both the Pittsburgh International Airport and the Allegheny County Airport. We are critical infrastructure, so when the pandemic hit, we stay open. We have about 425 employees, and those that could work from home, we shifted into two teams. So we spent half the time in the office, where I am now, and half the time working from home. And I wasn't sure how that was going to go. I have 2 teenagers, and I thought, well, they could be pretty distracting, or maybe, on the good side, I'd get to see my kids a little bit more. And honestly, it didn't take long to realize I did not see those kids any more than I do when being at home than when I'm in the office. But I think we'll all, like many of us, the shift to working from home has worked out well. And I'm happy to be here today to share some of the experiences over the past few months.
That's fabulous, Katherine. And Katherine, can you just tell us something that most people wouldn't know about you?
Most people wouldn't know about me. Well, I've gotten into painting since most of things have been shut down. I actually have 14 cans of paint sitting in my kitchen right now, ready for the weekend. So
wonderful.
I have a second job in the painting industry, I guess.
You can never have too many side hustles. All right, let's go on to Niraj.
Hi, everyone. I'm Niraj Shekhar from Mettler Toledo. I'm the head of Global IT Services, which essentially encompasses a team that is responsible for all of our business units, infrastructure, and applications around the world. Mettler Toledo is a $3 billion company that manufactures precision measurement equipment, and we are globally distributed from China to all parts of Europe, EMEA, as well as North and South America. So we have a pretty significant footprint, about 16,000 employees. Our global IT staff is about 600 people, a third of which are a part of our organization in global IT services. And I echo what Katherine was saying. There's been obviously significant challenges that we've had to overcome with the pandemic, getting used to this work from home life. But I will say, with the significant presence we had in China, I would say we had a bit of a head start because we started back in January, preparing our organization to work from home. So some very interesting insights from the early days of this pandemic.
Thank you, Niraj. Mark?
Good morning. Thank you all for joining. I'm Mark Henderson. I'm Vice Chancellor and Chief Information Officer at the University of Pittsburgh. I echo with the things that my colleagues on the call have said. It has been quite the ride so far. I mean, pivoting from being an in-person university to remote teaching and learning, and doing that in very, very short order. One of the big ahas for me was that, in the immortal words of Lou Gersten, elephants can dance. And we demonstrated that by putting technologies and services and support infrastructures in place so that we can continue educating 30-odd thousand students across our regional campuses and the Oakland campus. We got sort of a head start because when I came to Pitt about a year ago, we really didn't recognize remote work, but I instituted that among the IT organization. So we were prepared to provide support and maintain all of our infrastructures from a remote footing. So that worked out very well.
All right. That's wonderful, Mark. Mark, can you tell us some that's not obvious about you? What's something that's not out there on the street?
I would say it's interesting that we're working remote because much like Where in the World is Waldo or Carmen Electra, I'm likely to be working either from Florida or from Pittsburgh, depending on my mood and the patience of my wife.
That's wonderful. And we're nonetheless wiser where you might be.
Indeed.
So there'll be a special poll at the end of this event. Where's Mark at today? Don't tell us. And Niraj, tell us a little bit about yourself. What's one thing that we don't know about you?
So, I think the one thing that maybe only Ben knows in this group is that I'm an avid cyclist. So I tend to try to cycle between 80 to 100 miles a week. So I've taken up that hobby ever since we've started this work from home life. I think with the lower commute times, working from home, I've had a chance to get out more often. So it's been a good benefit.
Wonderful. Let's switch to Mr. Farley.
Get myself off mute. Thank you, Ben. So Steve Farley, Vice President of Technology for Nationwide Insurance, wearing my headset proudly, as you can see, which became one of our largest challenges as we went to work from home with all of our call centers. So got myself a nice Jabra headset and use it regularly because it comes through more clearly. But anyway, if you don't know Nationwide, I am no Brad Paisley or Peyton Manning, so I'm not gonna. Well, I may sing the jingle for you, or you can sing it for me. The old Nationwide is on your side. So we have a variety of businesses. Most people know us for those jingles and insurance. What we know is our personal lines, which is about 10 billion in sales a year, but we are very significant in financial services with 20 billion in sales a year, and our commercial products at about $8 billion in sales. So our IT organization is about 6,000 strong and about $1.2 billion in spend every year. Working really hard to manage that effectively in these trying times. And we did a ton of work to prepare for work from home. Some things we did great before it happened. Some things we did great after it happened. So, we got lucky on a lot of introduction of technology like Teams and Microsoft Office in the cloud, and got a little bit lucky that we were on web gateway technology to enable VPN bypasses and split tunneling. So amazingly, we did extremely well. We have over 26,000 associates working mostly from home across the country. So that's us. Wonderful.
And we heard that we have painting, cycling, and travel work from Where's Waldo. So what's something about you, Steve?
Yeah, you probably don't see it, but I'm a cowboy at heart. So I'm a proud owner of a nationwide farm policy, which we are #1 in the farm industry. So I have a small gentleman's farm north of Columbus and raise and show horses across the country. So do a little horse business.
Oh, wonderful. Can you get, Brad Paisley over to your house with singing a Nationwide jingle?
I wish, because he's been here in the office, he and Peyton. So yeah, I got to meet him. It's great.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. All right, well, let's get right into it. Mark gave us a little bit of precursor around the AHA. And so, Mark, you shared the elephants can dance sort of like biggest AHA. I'd like to shift to Katherine. Katherine, what's been your sort of biggest AHA? What's been your biggest learning?
I think for me, with the pandemic, I was really surprised with how it accelerated innovation. So, we lost 96% of our passengers practically overnight, and had to sit there, and say, how can technology help ensure a safe journey for the passengers and rebuild confidence that travel is safe? So we, one example is, we were working with Carnegie Robotics, a local robotics company, on autonomous floor scrubbers. And at the same time, we're looking at UV robots and UV technology to help to really get that deep clean in the airport. Carnegie, in discussions with them, they said, look, we can slap a UV light on this robot and let's see, pilot it, test it, and see if we have a product that makes sense. And so within a matter of weeks, we had the UV robots cleaning the floors in the airport. So I think there were a lot of opportunities. There are a lot of opportunities for some of our local, to tap into the talent in the region around robotics and artificial intelligence, and see what can be done, and to solve whatever issues each company is facing as a result of the pandemic.
That's fabulous. Katherine, just as a follow-up question, how long would that process have taken without the pandemic to get something from an idea into production?
Oh, geez. I would say if we weren't in a pandemic, it probably would have been a 4 to 6 month cycle. But you right away shift to the MVP, the minimal viable product, and Carnegie Robotics was a great partner in that. And culturally, our organizations worked well together to be able to put something out to start doing that cleaning, right away within about 2 weeks. I think we had it. So definitely shorten that cycle. They're continuing to work on the model. They have version 2 coming out now. So we did find it very effective, and are moving forward to the final commercial product and going to market with that.
Oh, that's fabulous. That's fabulous. So you have little robots running around using
They're
UV
not
light.
so little, but
Okay.
they are. Yes. So perhaps 3 feet high, and we have 4 of them. They have names. We have Amelia. She cleans downstairs, and we have some of have named the robots after famous aviation people, and they're doing a great job. Passengers love them. Kids interact and play with them. So it's been great to have that kind of partnership where we could do something like that, and see that kind of innovation coming out of the region.
That's a fabulous story, and I can't wait to see a picture of one of these robots. Niraj, you've got sort of a global footprint. Can you share a little bit, like what's the ahas from a Mettler perspective?
Yeah, sure. It's a great question. So I think similar to what Katherine was saying, I think the pace of innovation, I think, is definitely something that I would highlight as a result of this pandemic. I think, as an IT organization in a manufacturing environment, one of the key challenges can always be, processes, governance, and making sure, everything is checked to the nth degree before you release new software. But I think the pandemic has forced us to be extremely pragmatic and practical about processes and governance. And I think a lot of overhead that you typically have in place in a large enterprise environment, we've had to scale that down pretty significantly in the interest of speed and stability for our employees that work from home. So I think as a result of that, one of the key things in terms of why that innovation or that pace of innovation has increased, I think it's just because you get a much more raw expression of the talent in your organization, right? Because they're really at their best as a part of this new environment that we're in. And as a result of that, I would also kind of echo a very similar story to what Katherine is saying. In our environment, making manufacturing measurement equipment, essentially sensor-based devices. What we noticed was a pretty significant adoption of our industrial IoT solutions, which traditionally would have taken years from a customer perspective. But when the customers were able to see the value proposition in, how can you enable remote work in our respective customers' environments using these devices, we actually saw a pretty significant uptick in interest and adoption of these IoT tools. So it's been a very interesting exercise. I think Steve also mentioned some of that in terms of the luck of having certain technology available. I think it goes to show that having a strong pipeline of technology driven projects. I think this pandemic presented many opportunities for us to really push those topics forward that would have otherwise, as I mentioned, taken years for us.
Yeah, I'm curious, Niraj, are there any specific behaviors that changed? Like, can you give us an example? Like, before pandemic, we would have done this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pandemic, we did this.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm sure many of us have experienced that. I think the larger an organization gets, the more checks and balances there exist in terms of processes and really new technology. I think I would say during this pandemic, when we talk about decision making, I think that's one of the eye-opening exercises when you talk about how decisions can be made in real time that traditionally would have waited for a monthly or a quarterly meeting. I think just being able to get every stakeholder at the table in a discussion, decide, and you move forward. I think we're now in the era of as long as there's progress, we're heading in the right direction. Whereas in the past, it was more of, hey, let's make sure we get everything perfectly lined up. It may take months of analysis and only then should we move forward. Whereas now we're saying, okay, let's take a step forward every day and make some quick decisions and make sure we're on the right path.
That's perfect. Perfect. Mark, I want to drill a little bit into your elephants can dance, right? Academia is not known for moving very quickly. Can you just share a little bit more about kind of like, can you unpack that a little bit in terms of like behaviors, or we used to do this, now we do this, and what you think that means going forward for the university?
Yeah, the pandemic has kind of shone a light on IT, and as such, the realities of the impact that we have and how we permeate every aspect of the institution has become very clear. And so we have to move very quickly. I mean, we're still working with the registrar, for example, to figure out what classes will be in what buildings, and working with facilities to prepare the buildings for classes and for occupancy. And we don't have the luxury of all the pre-planning, like Niraj was just saying. We have to move very quickly. Speed is now of the essence. So we have been able to kind of tear down some of the bureaucracy that attends our environment. We needed to get a relationship in place with a vendor that we have never worked with before, Radiant Technologies, because that's our partner in working to outfit the classrooms with the appropriate technology that supports our high flex teaching model. And so, again, in very short order, we are probably 85% complete in outfitting more than 200 classrooms with new technology. And we will largely be completed by the end of this week. So we launched this probably around the 11th or I guess the 11th or 12th of July. And we are ready to have students in these classrooms. And we are piloting and training with faculty members in our classrooms. So we're kind of building the airplane in flight, so to speak. Yeah. But the real opportunity is that we had to kind of change our culture, and we had to become entrepreneurial. We had to take big swings, and speed, again, has been of the essence in order to support the mission of the university.
That's cool. That's very, I mean, I just can't imagine the daily updates. Well, here's what the pandemic report looks like. We have to switch to this, and we have parents calling all over the place to try to figure out where their kids are going. I just can only imagine the light that is being shown on IT and its ability to enable moving.
Yeah. Quickly. And I would also suggest that another big realization is that our role transcends the traditional IT, because we are now in the thick of Internet of Things, and we're installing thermal scanners. And that isn't traditionally an IT, wheelhouse kind of thing, but because of the way the devices work, they're network enabled, they are a part of the Internet of Things approach, and that's how we're looking at it. We also are spending time, because what has been really amazing, at least to me, is yes, more than aware of the digital divide in Pittsburgh, but it really became painfully evident because there were students, faculty, and staff who did not have the appropriate technology in order to be productive in this remote work footing. And so we had to put the appropriate mechanisms in place whereby we could get the technology in the hands of people who sorely needed it.
Thank you for that. Steve, you're a big financial services firm. What's been the biggest aha for you and in the company?
Yeah, I mean, during this era, I think it's the absolute need to move more aggressively towards a digital world. So you can imagine that in financial services, it's high net worth individuals. A lot of times we're dealing with a independent broker dealer community. How we interacted with them might have been more face-to-face interactions, and we're learning that everybody is embracing these digital trends, and so how we're reaching and selling and driving our revenue is different through those relationships using digital technology. So even more important today than ever on the business side. I think the biggest thing I did want to mention is the changing mindset. So we at Nationwide, even in IT, we grew up in that agile era over the last 10 years, and we all believed in a good face-to-face chat is the most important thing, and co-located teams and all this. And we had a little bit, let's imagine we had maybe some of us had a rigid mindset of what work from home, if it could work, distributed teams, and could they work? And we wake up today and we've totally changed our mindset. We've been super effective. We sent all of our call centers home, all our technologists home. We've responded to incidents as they are occurring, serving our customers extremely well. We have a very different mindset today about what it means for our workforce to be able to work from home. So those were huge learnings for us.
It is possible to be remote and be effective. And that's a huge switch from the face-to-face, I'm all co-located in the room, agile mindset. I imagine that especially for you, Steve, I know you've been knee-deep in sort of this agile world for a decade, and it had to be a big shift.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see Nationwide go to where it doesn't matter anymore. That we still do believe, and we talk a lot about it even today, that the brick and mortar matters, the sense of community matters, the coming together matters, but it will be very different when we come out the back end of this.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Steve. I'll remind the audience, please put your questions in the chat and we'll get to them. I've got one more question that I want to ask the panelists, and then we'll open up for Q&A from the audience. Let's take this down to a personal sort of level, right? Katherine, I'm curious, what kind of leadership sort of challenges from a personal perspective have you faced, and what have you dealt with them?
Sure. So, I think the working from home is not new to IT people. What is new is the length and how we're doing it. So we have two teams as a way to preserve the workforce, right? So we have, that means half my team I won't see in person for, potentially a year or somewhere close to that. And, in the beginning, we're in a crisis. Obviously, IT people, how to handle that. You jump in and you handle that. But now we're coming back to business as usual. And it's, you don't want to, the challenge is engagement. How do we keep people engaged? How do we make sure that they know what the priorities are now, which have shifted, right? We're in airport, safety and security are always our top priority, but now we have an element of public health that is something we look at in everything we do. So, we've done some things with engagement in terms of, if I haven't seen somebody in virtually in a while, I'll set up a meeting just to chat, and we're trying to get people very used to always having the video on during the team meetings. We do have, and enterprise-wise rolled out engagement activities using, an internal social media type a forum. And, we've had our, virtual trivias, lunch and learn type things. And we're trying to, on a weekly basis, have a way to keep people engaged so they feel connected, so they're still, feel very tightly tied to the vision and mission and know where we're headed.
Yeah. So would you characterize that you're having to be a lot more purposeful in that engagement versus sort of random collisions that happen in the workplace?
Yes. I miss bumping into somebody walking down the hall and being able to stop and chat about what's going on with them. That's a lot harder in a virtual meeting, right? You usually get to the content and the subject matter and then you're done. Even though you're seeing them through the screen, it's not the same as in person, and you don't have the same kind of ad hoc discussions. So it's a much more purposeful way to engage, and you realize over time you have to keep it up. But it's one of those things that's probably easy to drop off the radar. And so trying to find the right reminders and mechanisms to make sure that that continues over the course of however long we're in this.
Yeah, that's a great sort of like takeaway for folks, is just, be purposeful. Much like when I used to run large programs and projects, you need to have a communication sort of plan and strategy to just make that a very purposeful sort of component of your leadership. Niraj, what about you? What tell us about your personal, what have you faced?
Yeah, it's certainly been an interesting experience. Being an international organization, to be honest, a lot of my team is actually abroad. And so for me personally, in the onset of the pandemic, the thought was, hey, this probably isn't going to change a whole lot, right? And I think you hear, or at least used to hear, people mentioning that, well, we're used to working from home, so perhaps it's not going to be all that different. But I think just the duration, obviously, of pandemic and the duration of how long we've been apart, I think, you do start to hear more and more that your teams are missing that human contact. And I think for us, it's also trying to balance kind of the mental health aspect of all of this, just in the middle of the physical, obviously, right? And it's different country by country. So it's been challenging, and it hasn't been as easy as I think what we first anticipated. But to your point of having a communication strategy and plan, I think a lot of it goes into being purposeful, and being purposeful with ad hoc interactions with your team, right? So when you think of a team that really gets along and jives very well together, it's a bit like your work family, and you want to see each other. So we kind of translate that, at least with the leadership team, into, how do you stay in touch with your family that's distant, right? We're all in that same situation with family distributed around the country and the rest of the world. So it's not just, having the Zoom or Teams meetings. It's a text message here or there just to check in. It's a phone call, on your way to run an errand. It's simple things like that that I think are starting to bring a little bit more of that cohesion back. But it's certainly, even for someone who walked into it thinking it's going to be a lot of the same with the virtual team, it really hasn't been. And I think it's just taken a lot of purposeful attention to reaching out to your team and staying connected in different ways.
It's really interesting, Niraj, that you bring in sort of this notion of sort of the non-work sort of component of sort of communication, and sort of this notion of empathy associated with specific individual situations that folks might have, so that there's some evidence that you actually are paying attention, you actually care.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's so important, right? And I think the stress factor of many of our colleagues working from home, the gentleman from Avanade earlier having breakfast with the family during the call. I mean, these are the new realities of trying to balance homeschooling, taking care of your kids while working, attending calls. And I think the stress level is high. And I think we have to just be cognizant of that as leaders in our organization and address that.
Got it. Mark, how about you? What kind of personal challenges, other than going back and forth from Florida to Pittsburgh safely?
Well, I think the biggest thing as a leader is to understand that communications becomes paramount. Mm-hmm. And it is a process that has to be embraced by everyone, mm-hmm. And it's particularly tricky because you don't have the water cooler conversations like you might have had when everyone was in person. So what I have done is to ensure that people understand that work is what we do. It isn't what we are. And what we are, partners to our significant others, parents to our children, sons and daughters to our parents. And that the first things have to be first. And the first thing is taking care of yourselves. So I encourage people to push away from their monitors, push away from their laptops, and recharge their batteries. Go for a walk, because work is not so much a function of time or place anymore. Mm-hmm. It's a function of executing against your commitments. So take care of yourself, spend time with your families. And then from a communication standpoint, what are ways that we can still be very human in these unprecedented times. So we've done things like virtual happy hours, or bring your kids to work, or share your pets. And we're very deliberate about maintaining our communications rhythms. So I have this thing once a month called Chat with Mark, where it's a no agenda agenda. And we talk about things that are top of mind for the people who are in the organization, and encourage people to be as innovative and creative on the social side of things as we are from a technology standpoint. And just really, we got to be very deliberate about staying in touch with each other. And that's something that my senior staff and I spend a lot of time talking about, ways to get communications down throughout the organization and from the organization back up through us.
Yeah, that's fabulous. I love your notion that work is what we do, not who we are, and we better take a moment to take care of ourselves, because sometimes during very difficult times we forget sort of this basic hygiene around. You're not going to be good to anybody if you can't take care of yourself.
That's exactly right.
Kind of component. Steve, from a leadership, what's been a challenge that you've faced, and have you dealt with it?
I think, from a leadership perspective, I don't know that I wouldn't call them challenges. We've had good things, we've had bad things happen. We've given rebates to our customers. I was just getting ready to type something in the chat room, but I'll just kind of say it here, is we put the test to what we used to think about our continuity management plan. So as many large companies, we manage very diligent continuity management plans, but until you actually have a crisis and have to execute them, you don't really know if they work. And what we found is we were going through a lot of motions, and oops, they were not going to work the way we had documented them. And this crisis kick-started us into motion on things that were never written down in our continuity management plan. So, it didn't work the way we thought. So it was a learning exercise to say, okay, we have work to do. If we're really going to think about continuity management in the future, it's got to be better than what we had before. And we learned a lot of lessons. And what I did type is a crisis creates great innovation. So people stepped up, and we got it done. We didn't get it done the way the continuity management plan said we'd get it done, but we got it done.
Yeah, that's fabulous. I love the notion, there is that saying, don't let a good crisis go to waste. And it feels in many cases that this crisis has created a burning platform that, most of us are not letting go to waste. Let us really drive new behaviors. And it's been amazing to see cycle times and decisions that used to take years compressed into days and weeks now. And I don't think we would have made this kind of progress without this sort of burning platform.
Yeah, the other thing is just watching leaders react. So, it was easy to be complacent, even as an IT leader. Okay, great. We all had teams. We know how to use Zooms, but were we really doing it? Were we really facilitating these kind of great chat conversations through our Microsoft Teams environments? And of course not. Even the people in IT who might have been IT savvy weren't as good as they could have been. So we are much better today at using technology, and definitely, our leaders on the business side who, maybe we had a lot of admins and secretary type of people that would do things for us, and we've learned how to do it for ourselves using technology because we were forced to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm going to switch now to taking a couple of questions from the audience. We've got from John Sig. I hope I didn't butcher your name, John. I apologize if I did. With all the reactive innovation, how do you monitor quality and security of the innovation implementations?
It's a good question. If I could jump in on that one. So, I think some of it does require a base foundation that you have in terms of security and quality, right? When we released our industrial IoT products, security obviously is paramount to that. I think everyone has noticed that the cybersecurity threat has gone up pretty significantly since the start of the pandemic. But to ensure that you have that level of control, we tend to, just from a prioritization standpoint, from a security standpoint, we tend to prioritize all of the security frameworks and security-based testing of all of our products before we release them. And that tends to be more of the focus, at least during this time, versus just pure feature enablement. So that's kind of, shifted the priorities for us during this time. And then for anything that's customer facing, obviously quality being as critical as it is, we've had to really look at, how do you adopt new technologies that are a little bit more off the shelf, out of the box. Steve mentioned the adoption of Teams at Nationwide. Something similar for us happened at Mettler Toledo, where, a lot of the out of the box, off the shelf software, we really reduce the kind of deployment time for those types of technologies, where kind of quality is built into it, at least to a certain degree. But anything that we were doing in-house, we would really emphasize usability testing and security over new feature enablement. That was our approach to it.
As your approach, put security put that not security as sort of a key thing to test in the priority of implementation and testing. Do that first versus new features.
Exactly, yeah, and especially being in the industrial IoT space, Mettler does not want to be in the headlines for causing, Pfizer to have a data breach because we had an IoT solution that just wasn't pen tested, as an example. So it's critical, and it's top of mind for all of our executives at the company.
Got it.
I would agree. I mean, quality and security aren't sacrificed at all. They're still your number one priority. You may sacrifice some features and roll those out over time, but from our perspective, the same quality and security measures are in place with the MVP as they would be with a final product.
Okay. Mark or Steve, can you chat a little bit more about, while we're starting to talk about security, what kind of impact you've seen from a security perspective, and what kind of, what has that caused you to do differently?
I mean, we have a pretty strong focus on information risk management and security here at Nationwide, a pretty large group that focuses on that. And interesting enough, we just had a presentation from our CISO yesterday, and you can imagine what he started out. We said, just imagine a world where all security starts from the endpoint and the user, and then imagine that world that there's more of that going on in a work from home situation and how we're working today. So we're not all necessarily in the building on the same networks, maybe not in the same protected state. So, lots of new practices and policies. I mentioned, in the early part of this Zoom session, when there were a few of us on, that even Zoom became a challenge, because people were like, oh, wait, Zoom isn't, thoughts about whether Zoom was secure, not secure, what you have to do to make it secure, what do we believe about that at Nationwide. So, lots of philosophy on how you even interact through some of these channels.
Mark, you got a massive open system there. With all the students and all the endpoints. How do you secure students as endpoints? I'm just kidding there.
Well, to the best that we can, because you have to also balance the fact that the devices that students bring, they're their own personal devices. So there are policies that we have in place where students have to have certain security features enabled, and they have to register in order to use the network and those kinds of things. But moving to remote for the faculty and staff, we've gone to some different practices in terms of remote management. So we do a lot of pushes of updates and security releases, and all the devices that are going out to faculty members or to staff that are university devices are registered in our remote management platform. So we have a fair bit of control over what those devices are doing, what kinds of software can be loaded on them, and they're managed. So plus one on what everybody else has said is that we are not sacrificing quality or security given our remote footing. On the contrary, we're probably spending a lot more time and energy paying attention to the threats. And what we're seeing also is just a lot of social engineering threats beyond just from a technology standpoint. So we spend a fair amount of time trying to educate the community as to these risks and what to look for.
So for our audience, Mark, can you describe what is one of those social engineering risks that you have to think about and mitigate?
Well, one big one is because we do a lot of research, and in particular, as of late, research around vaccines for COVID or therapies for curing COVID. And so there are those who call and take advantage of our footing to try to get people to surrender information that could compromise some of our work or gain access to our facilities, or in many instances to cheat people out of money by suggesting that there's something that they're not.
Interesting. I've got a higher level question. There was a little bit of touching on culture as being shifted. I'm curious, do you think that we've permanently shifted some of the cultures in your organization with this pandemic, or do you think it's going to be business as usual, if a vaccine happens in Q1 next year? What's your thinking on that?
No, I think this is largely the new normal. I mean, there's some people on my team who have indicated that they are so much more productive. One, because many of the folks who are on my team live quite a ways outside of Pittsburgh, and so they may lose an hour and a half in travel each way. So that's 3 hours there, and they just don't see any need to really be in Oakland given the nature of the work that they do. And so we are rethinking, what does space mean, and what are our requirements for space at the university going forward.
Got it. So you would vote yes. This is a permanent shift in this.
Yes.
Right.
The other thing is this will be around us for quite a while. I mean, so even if there are some breakthroughs on the vaccine side or on the cure side, it's going to be quite a while before we can ratchet it up to give 300+ million people, a vaccine shot. And so given that, we're going to have to continue to be vigilant and to manage accordingly. And we are de-densifying the university in consideration of students being there and faculty members being there. So the fewer staff that are there, the better. The more we are going to be successful in social distancing.
Got it. Steve, I know there's been you've spoken about a big shift at Nationwide, and I know there's been some pretty big real estate sort of decisions being made around that. Can you just share a little bit? Do you think this is a permanent change in culture, and so what are the key aspects of that change that you would see?
Yeah, I mean, nothing's solidified today, but we know that our mindset has shifted dramatically around our thoughts around work from home and what we believe. I do believe it'll be with us forever into the future. I don't believe that we'll just say, oh, it's a total work from home like it is today, based on how we want to invest in the communities and how we want to work together. So it'll be a hybrid, but we will be a lot more flexible. It definitely is causing the company to think about real estate, think about the footprint of the buildings and all those kind of things, because that could create opportunity as well. But we still, I mean, there's just a lot of articles out there that you just have to read and get your head around what is the purpose of brick and mortar, what is the purpose of community in the future. And we're reading those articles, we're thinking about it, and we don't have a solidified policy on it just yet, but it's definitely changed the way, it's going to change forever the way we work.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have an incredible opportunity for collaboration around with the CIO technology community in Columbus and Pittsburgh, because one of the hallmarks of innovation that I've observed is how quickly can we learn. And how quickly we can learn is a function of how quickly we can learn what other people are doing as well. And so I think I'm pretty excited about the opportunity for us to as a group and community, define how it is we can collaborate and learn quickly so we can be a lot more successful. We've got an interesting question from Jeff McCormick. There are times when my house becomes disorganized and I simply do not have time to get things in order until I get a plan together that weekend, and then I magically have time to get it done. Niraj and others have noted that innovation moved quickly during this time period. Is there an empowering lesson in this regarding how we prioritize and being conscious about where to aim our focus? Time is something we can't get anything back. what is the lesson around prioritization and focus for all of you?
So I can maybe just build on what I added there in the chat box. You know, a big thing for us was being pushed to this extreme situation of, you know, having to deploy certain technologies as fast as possible. I think we realized just how much work is to be done in terms of our process and kind of IT governance model. You know, I think the one consistent theme amongst our IT leadership team is, okay, we've realized what's truly possible now and really how fast we can deliver and deploy value to our business. How do we sustain that over the long run? And as I mentioned in the chat box, being a manufacturing company, we have a lot of lean management principles that the company itself follows, and we do as well in IT. And I think from a lean standpoint, you know, it's all about reducing waste, and it's all about increasing customer value, similar to the premise of Agile. We just, I think, realized how much of a ways we have to go ahead of us. And it's really going to become a priority for us to, one, kind of create almost a new normal in terms of what that IT governance model needs to look like. So it's lean, it's fast, and it delivers value quickly. But obviously with the points we mentioned earlier, with still the same level of quality and security. And we know it's possible. We just have to kind of, you know, shift the company mindset to adopt that.
Got it. Katherine, any sort of lessons or any kind of like words of advice for how to get focus and clarity and where?
Communication as well, but I think, you know, we had to shift priorities, right? And we shifted, you know, very quickly or immediately to public health, right? So that became the priority, and then anything else that, you know, could help with the passenger confidence, that could help with efficiencies. We're losing, you know, we're losing business. So, you know, what technology can we deploy to help with the maintenance? And now our maintenance crews are cleaning, you know, 3 times more than they did in some areas. How do we help them not have to clean in other areas? So things like smart restrooms and IoT devices. So they just naturally, you know, those priorities shifted. Mm-hmm. And then it's, again, just with communication, making sure everybody's aware. I think there is a good point around, we now recognize how fast we can move and react and add that extra value. So there is something to be said about governance models in the future and how those will evolve.
Got it. Steve, any thoughts?
You know, sorry, Ben, I was in the middle of this chat looking at some of the cool questions on phishing. So,
well, let's switch to that question. Since you were focused on that.
Yeah, I was getting ready. I thought it was a great question because
we're going to move very quickly here.
Yeah,
that's what all panels. Industries across the globe are starting to see a spike in phishing, voice and phishing, and smishing, SMS and phishing. Much more sophisticated version of phishing. Have your respective organizations experienced a spike? If so, how is security team combating this issue?
Yeah, so I'll start because I was getting ready to type it, which is, you know, our security teams are all over it. We do some pretty cool stuff even inside of Nationwide. So we have internal phishing campaigns. It's amazing to watch. So we have tests for all leaders, all associates, and if you don't pass the test, so they'll send out you know, internal phishing tests to see who's paying attention, who's not paying attention. Everything from the approvals I do, they'll, you know, like if somebody needs access to a system in our access systems, they'll send out a phishing campaign through there, and it'll say something cute that, please allow so-and-so employee access to Brad Paisley's latest album. And they'll test to see if you're just going to blanketly approve that stuff. They'll also send email phishing campaigns out to test us. And you'll get feedback directly from the security office on who passed and who didn't pass those phishing campaigns. So we're actually teaching our associates what they look like and actually testing our associates to make sure they're paying attention.
Got it.
I'd like to add on to that. We have, you know, significant focus on cybersecurity even before the pandemic hit, and we've really significantly have upped that, being in the aviation industry and the airport industry. But phishing campaigns we found to be critical as well. And since the pandemic hit, we have noticed more fish coming in. And the frequency in which we do our own campaigns now has increased to doing them on quite a regular basis. Also, October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, so it's a good time to get a lot more out there. In October, we'll have another major campaign around that.
Got it. Got it. Well, we're starting to get to the close. What I'd like each of our panelists to do is, do you have a word of advice? What is the word of advice that you might have for our audience? And I'll turn it over to Audrey for closing remarks. Whoever wants to go first.
Well, it's easy to go first because no one can steal your word. So I'll just say my word kind of today is resiliency. We will get through this together. That's been our mantra at Nationwide, and we are seeing and being resilient.
All right,
I would say, and it was mentioned earlier, but I double down on it. Do not allow the waste of a crisis. And this has been a horrible set of circumstances, but it's been kind of interesting how change has sped up and how we've been able to accelerate things that have been on our drawing board for some time. And we're now seeing people adopt to some of the changes that we wanted to bring about.
Fabulous.
I would say partnerships with the universities, with the startups, with other technology partners have been very beneficial to us in this time. So definitely don't overlook the opportunities with partnerships.
And I would just add, I think, learning and self-reflection during this pandemic. So continuing the learning within your organizations of what works and what doesn't work, and finding ways to sustain that over the long haul. Perfect.
Well, before I turn it over to Audrey, I'd just like to thank Katherine, Niraj, Mark, and Steve. Personally, I've learned a lot, and this has been a wonderful chat. I wish we could continue this over a beer or something. So with that, Audrey, take it away. You there, Audrey?
Yeah, I'm there. Sorry, I needed to unmute. So I want to say thank you to each and every one of you. I mentioned earlier, I'm excited about a regional, focus and this kind of larger span of inclusiveness. I love the diversity of everyone that's on the panel in terms of the work that they do and some of the intersections that are very common. Ben, you did a terrific job facilitating and creating an atmosphere of intimacy. Sometimes I think there really is intimacy in doing some of these Zooms. Because we can get up close, have a chance to talk, and maybe create, the new world of doing things. But, at the Tech Council, we've been pivoting and just, working like amazing. If someone would have told me these last 5 months, this is where we were today, I would just say, you need to stop. You need to increase your medication, because I'm not seeing that change, but we all learn. And I really, truly, truly devoured listening to each and every one of you talk about your own growth and your own change, because it really is about people, not just tech. It's really about people, and it is about people first. And this is probably the chance we've all had time to look at how people focused are we, right? Sort of check that, do some self-checking and saying, am I really walking the talk? So really appreciate that. I love listening to everyone in the CIO role, particularly because I came out of that space. So it's always cool to hear what kinds of problems people are solving. And I just want to give you, all the pivots that we've done. We're doing some stuff. Actually, I'm going to leave here and I'm going to head and see some humans in real time. I actually asked my staff yesterday. They said, well, we'll see you tomorrow at North Park. And I went, what? You're not going to see me. And they were like, oh yeah, we're getting together because we have Tech Fest, and we're going to try it. We don't know how it's going to work, but we're trying it. And I give my people credit. And Tech Fest, there's still some time. We're going to be at North Park this afternoon. We're going to hand out t-shirts. We're going to have some social distance networking time. And we're going to have some virtual content for Thursday and Friday. It's deep. It's peer-based education and sharing in deep technology. So we usually do it in person, and it's a massive, massive event of people with deep technology skills from all over the region, but it's not doing it differently right now, and we're doing it virtually, so wish us luck. And if you want to join us, we're going to be out there at North Park. And August 24th, we're also trying another thing. We're doing our golf outing. Our golf outing, believe it or not, for CIOs has been a big event. A big event, it sells out right away. It's different this year. We're going to have separate carts. And there are people who want to golf. There are, CIOs and people in tech that want to golf. So if you're interested in that, we're doing everything we can to ensure safety measures. And it certainly won't be the same crowd, but it will be a great crowd. And then on the 31st of August, we do our annual Cyberg, meaning, cybersecurity out of Pittsburgh. And it's a 3-day event. And registration and event details are on our website. And that might be something that any of you who are on the call, since you're virtual and you're in Columbus, you might want to participate, or your staff might want to participate in terms of, seeing what's happening. We have thought leaders, from all over. And, let's see, we also have a tech record. So it's sort of interesting now that we're thinking about Columbus, et cetera. We do a tech record, and that's really a map. It's both physical and virtual that places all the tech companies. What does it look like? And we do a physical map, we send it out, people hang it up on the wall, and we have a virtual one. And there's an opportunity for you to have your imprint on it if you're in the services side of the house and you want people to know what you're up to. And we send it out like to 10,000 people, and Lexi on our staff is the point person for that. Her contact information will be in the chat. So here's the deal. We're going to split everyone up into smaller groups. So now that you've heard from these folks, we're going to split everyone up into smaller groups. And I encourage everyone to share their LinkedIn profiles and share contact information. A few of us are going to be smattered through the groups just to make sure that we have opportunity to connect and conversations are going. And it'll automatically switch up within about 10 minutes, and then we'll wrap up by 10 o'clock. So thank you all. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, for all of our sponsors. Really appreciate your being with us on the journey of change, because we know that tomorrow is not going to look like today. So thanks, everyone. And Taylor is going to break us up into our networking groups. And if I don't get a chance to see you today, I know I'll see you another time. Thank you to our speakers who joined us today. I know you're really busy, and so appreciate you taking the time to hang with us.
Can you guys hear me?